What if I told you about an event that has been awaited for almost 2,000 years? Imagine an event. Empires have fallen, wars have been fought, epidemics have changed the world. Technology has transformed human life from beginning to end. But despite all this, millions of people are still waiting for the same thing: the return of Jesus Christ. This may be one of the longest awaited events in human history. So why have people been waiting for this return for almost 2,000 years? And more importantly, where does this belief come from? We will delve into the depths of this subject, which is considered one of the greatest mysteries of the world today. Before we begin, let's state this. The purpose of this video is not to defend or refute any belief. Our aim is to try to understand the origins of this great expectation that has affected millions of people throughout history and why it is still so strong. The story begins almost 2,000 years ago. The life of Jesus Christ, his teachings, and the events that followed changed the course of world history. But for many people, the story did not end with his departure from this world. On the contrary, that's where the real story began. Because early Christian communities believed that Jesus would one day return. It was thought that this return would not be just an ordinary coming back. According to their belief, this event would be one of the most important turning points in human history. Justice would prevail, the struggle between good and evil would reach its final stage,
and the world would enter a new era.
But here, an interesting situation arose. Most of the early believers thought that this return would take place within their own lifetimes. Years passed, then decades passed, then centuries passed, but the expected event did not happen. It was at this point that one of the most interesting waits in human history began. Because people did not stop waiting. On the contrary, each new event strengthened this expectation. When we reached the Middle Ages, great epidemics occurred in Europe. Millions of people lost their lives. Many believed this was a sign of the approaching end. Then wars began. New prophecies emerged. New dates were given. But still, nothing happened. This situation continued in the following centuries. Each generation interpreted the major events of its time as signs of the approaching turning point. Earthquakes, famines, epidemics, economic crises, and great wars. Especially during the world wars, many people thought that history was entering its final stages. However, none of the predictions came true. In fact, hundreds of different dates have been given throughout history. Some claimed that the world would end in a specific year. Some said that certain events were definite signs. But as time passed, all of these predictions turned out to be wrong. So why do people continue to wait despite this? That's where the really interesting question begins. According to psychologists, people want to make sense of the future. Uncertainty creates fear. That's why, when major events happen, people tend to see them as part of a larger story. Historians say this expectation is not only a religious phenomenon, but also a cultural one.
Because throughout human history, people have always wanted to believe that a new beginning would come.
Perhaps that's why the idea of Jesus' return has survived for centuries. However, this topic has recently started to attract attention again. Thanks to the internet, people all over the world can share their opinions. The same discussions resurface on social media after every major event. When an earthquake occurs, when a war begins, when a major crisis happens, some people think these could be signs. Others say it's a natural cycle that has occurred throughout history. That's why the topic continues to be debated. Perhaps this is precisely what makes this story so interesting. The lack of a definitive answer. No one knows the future. No one can say for sure what will happen when. But despite this, billions of people know this idea. Millions of people are talking about this. And this wait, which has lasted for thousands of years, is still not over. Perhaps the real mystery isn't when the return will happen. Perhaps the real mystery is why humanity hasn't given up on this idea for 2,000 years. Why does each generation think its era is different? Why do people continue to see major events as part of a larger plan? And why does this topic still manage to affect millions of people despite all the time that has passed? Now, I wonder, do you think the prophecies about the return of Jesus will one day come true? Or is this one of the longest running waits in human history? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss our content on mysterious history, religion, and lost knowledge. See you in the next video.